Three, two, one. Good evening. Welcome to Thursdays with NAMI. My name is Peg Morrison. I'm the Director of Programs with NAMI North Carolina. That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness of North Carolina. I'll be your host for tonight. Thursdays with NAMI is our way of building conversations, building community on the topic of mental health. Our focus tonight is on eating disorders, which are commonly thought of by some as maybe a lifestyle choice. Everyone worries about their weight, right? Eating disorders, in fact, are serious, often fatal mental illnesses. They cause severe disturbances in people's behavior, their feelings, their thoughts, pretty much the definition of a mental health condition. And research is pointing to these conditions running in families. That's why twin and adoption studies have shown compelling evidence that genes play a role in whether or not a person is at risk of getting an eating disorder. In just a few minutes, we'll be taking a deep dive into all of this. We're featuring two women who are going to share their stories with us, Beth and Elisabeth, and I'm very jazzed about you getting to know them in just a moment. As usual, the first part of our show will be a conversation with our guests. About halfway through, we'll show a video of the week, and then we'll be taking questions from you all, our virtual studio audience. And now, a word from our sponsors. I'm pausing just a moment to pull up their beautiful logo. Thursdays with NAMI is funded in part by the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse Services through the Federal Community Mental Health Services Block Grant Fund. As always, we do appreciate their guidance and their support. Moving right along, Thursdays with NAMI is recorded. So if you have a friend who couldn't be here with us tonight, please let them know it is never too late. They are welcome to come back and check out the recording. It'll be on NAMI North Carolina's YouTube channel in just a week or so. Now, without further ado, I'm so proud and happy to introduce Beth Blubaugh, whom I met while working at NAMI, Ohio. Beth taught me a lot about eating disorders based on her lived experience. I'll always be grateful for that. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology and is a wonderful mental health advocate. Elisabeth Ramsey is a special person who I'm just now getting to know. She's an intern at Project Passport, and that mission is to create a community where people can stop wearing the masks of life and be real about their experience. She's a very talented writer. You can check out her blog at the Project Passport website. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. I'm also excited.
Great. So for both of you, this question applies. Each of you has a journey that has brought you here with us tonight. In whichever order you'd like, whoever wants to go first, can you tell us your recovery story or your journey in a nutshell?
Sure. Mine is, it's hard to fit in a nutshell, but I will do it.
Could be like a Brazil nut, you know.
Okay. My eating disorder, I have suffered from anorexia nervosa, and that started for me when I was 18, when I went away to college. I'm 43 now, so it's been about 25 years. And this actually is one of the first times in my life that I feel like I'm really doing well, and I'm really excited about that. And I did go through, my 20s were mostly spent in and out of a lot of treatment centers. I've been to about 7 treatment centers around the country, inpatient and residential, and have been in therapy for a very long time, and probably have done all the things out there, all the options. But I did go through a little period where I did kind of get a little bit better for about 5 years. And I always say that I was a functional anorexic at that point. So I was able to finish school, and I was dating, and I bought a condo, and I was interacting with life again. But I still had my weird eating thoughts, behaviors, all of that. And then in 2013, I got in a very serious car accident, and that right there, I had a traumatic brain injuries to my spine. I had to be out of work for a long time, because I'd gone back to work. So then I had to take off work. And at that point, from 2013 until this past year has pretty much been just a very dark, deep disaster. It was my eating disorder came back full-fledged, full-on. I had to go on disability, had to rely on state funding for medical insurance and all of that. So, but yeah, I'm happy to be here today, and I feel like this past year my life has slowly been getting back on track.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad you're here with us tonight. You look great.
Thanks.
All right, Elisabeth.
So for me, I didn't realize that I was struggling with eating until when we went on lockdown in March. And that's when I started talking to my boss, Sabria, about it and started talking to a therapist and a nutritionist. And looking back, I can see how I've had like tendencies with not wanting to eat and like starving myself when I was younger. But being a Black woman, the African American community does not talk about mental health at all. And I didn't know what an eating disorder was. So I was just thought I was just doing it because I was upset, or I do it to like punish myself because I was like mad at myself. So I was like, you're not allowed to eat. And it's something I struggled with, but never recognized until most recently when I was having such a hard time. I lost like 50 pounds in a matter of 2 months. And a little backstory is like, I have diabetes as well. I just diagnosed in 2018. And that in combination with not eating made me very sick. I could barely walk anywhere. And that's when I realized like this was a serious problem because my blood sugars were high, even though I wasn't eating. And I had to do a lot of working with a nutritionist and therapist to like realize that I had an eating disorder, because I didn't like talking about it because it was never talked about amongst family or even people that look like me. So it was like, you don't say it, you don't have it. So I still struggle now. It's getting better, but I still struggle with like not wanting to eat because I feel like I don't deserve to eat, which is something I have to keep reminding myself, like you do deserve to eat, you do deserve to take care of yourself, but I still struggle with that almost every day.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, thanks to both of you. Thank you, Elisabeth, for sharing your story. You also look great. You both look great. And I have to say this diagnosis has really hit home in my family. I have a family member who lives with anorexia. None of us knew for many years, and she's opened up to me about it. And the most shocking thing was that she had to replace her family doctor recently. She had someone who was great, and that person left town. And several doctors rejected her and said, well, you have anorexia, you've been in the hospital with it. I'm not accepting that into my practice. I don't work with that kind of patient. And I was stunned that that's even legal, or that a doctor would think about answering in that way. So it's been really brought to my attention in a big way that this is a huge problem that people aren't focusing enough on. So thank you for your courage and sharing your stories so eloquently. Okay, so Beth, this one's for you, and Elisabeth, of course, if you want to follow up, just holler when she's done. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is an eating disorder?
That's a huge question, but to put it into like a sentence or two, I would say it's disturbances in eating behaviors with related thoughts and emotions that go along with that. So in my experience, the eating behaviors or not eating behaviors, it's a wide range, and there are so many different eating disorders between anorexia, bulimia, compulsive overeating, diabulimia, orthorexia. There's so many different types. So everyone kind of has their own thing, but they all kind of generally have a dysfunction with some sort of eating behavior. But for me, the eating behaviors that were disturbed are pretty much the symptom of a much deeper underlying issue. So yes, it's important to fix the actual symptom and heal the symptom. But if you don't go beyond that and heal what's underneath, it is very likely that you will go back to those kind of coping mechanisms. And unfortunately, I have for a very long time. And most of the women I know. I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of different people around the country who suffer from eating disorders, which has been very helpful to have that camaraderie where we can talk and understand each other. But it is probably, the relapse rate is very, very high.
Okay. Well, thank you for that summary. Elisabeth, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share?
Took the words out of my mouth.
Okay. Beth, you mentioned orthorexia, and that's one I've just read about recently, where the person, it's not so much focused on calories or restriction or weight even, it's more about the orthodoxy or the purity of one's diet. And that makes a lot of sense to me because there are so many labels and so many news stories about, well, now gluten is bad for you, and now dairy is bad for you, and now sugar is bad for you, and now Splenda is bad for you. And I find myself really hooking into that. I think most of us do. So that really makes a lot of sense to me. It's like step on the crack and break your mother's back. It's that kind of feeling. Not to make light of it, but that one resonated with me a lot. And then anorexia with calorie restriction, which my family member has, and bulimia, which seems to be more binging and then purging in some way. So yeah, moving right along, this one is for Elisabeth. What are some misconceptions that people have about eating disorders?
So one that I've actually stereotyped before is people who are visibly smaller. They get stereotyped as possibly having an eating disorder, even though it can affect anyone, no matter your shape, your race, your gender. But even portrayals on TV, it's usually skinny white girls are portrayed as the one that possibly has an eating disorder, because I've seen shows that display them like that, which is not a healthy way to show people with eating disorders, because it needs to be more of an educational format than a TV show to make light of a situation like this, since it is a mental illness that people struggle with for real, and they don't look like one person.
Mm-hmm. That's an excellent point. That really is. And across the board, when we talk about mental health or any health issue, we need to make sure that whatever image we project looks like America, and not just one stereotype or one segment. So Beth, do you have any thoughts about that?
I would just add that goes even into, people in the medical field, especially insurance companies. Like I said, I've met a lot of different people with lots of different types of eating disorders, and I've watched a lot of people get sent home from treatment or denied treatment because they have reached a certain weight. And that is so not the issue here. I mean, for some people with anorexia, that was an issue for me. I was very malnourished and very underweight, but there are plenty of people that are normal, whatever normal is, normal weight or even overweight, and even the medical community doesn't understand that they can still have a very, very serious eating disorder and not be underweight. But a lot of people are denied coverage simply because they're not underweight.
That makes sense. It's interesting. The thought that occurred to me when you were speaking was, that's like with an addiction. As soon as the person's body is cleared of the toxin, let them go. Well, of course you wouldn't do that. They still have the addiction. And that is my next question, Beth. You once compared eating disorders to addiction. So say more about that.
Yeah, I feel like I can relate a lot to people with addictions. I guess the biggest similarity for me is that I think they're both coping mechanisms, which makes an eating disorder a little bit different, probably from other mental illnesses, and more like addiction. For me, it was definitely a coping mechanism, but it also does change the physiology of your body, both from the malnourishment, and there were just a lot of factors to go in. So I think diet culture and all the talk about weight and stuff out in the society and in the world, that probably is why I went down that route for whatever reason. but I could have, like in my mind, I could have easily slipped into an addiction of some sort, alcohol, drugs, anything like that. My goal was to escape from reality, to get a break from everything that was going on in my head. And if you're just concentrating on one thing, then nothing else matters. It's just this and only this. So it helped. And the bad part about it is it actually, I mean, it sounds bad, but it works. I mean, it works for what it does, which is the sad part. So like when you go to get better and recover, you have to go through this period where you don't know what's what, because like you were, well, I don't know. But you have to go through that very uncomfortable period of of saying, okay, my tools are taken away from me now, because that was my tool, that was my coping mechanism. You took that away and I've got nothing to replace it. I don't have any idea. I've got to figure those things out. And yeah, there are a lot of people to help with that and to guide you through that, but there still is that, there's no way to skip over that part of, oh my gosh, all the things that I was trying to suppress are coming up wildly right now, and there's nothing I can do. And I know what will make it go away. I know exactly what will make it go away, but I can't do that thing because it's killing me. So it's a very, and I think that is the part that most people maybe get stuck on. I guess I shouldn't say most people. That's the part that I got stuck on a lot. You get in there and you don't know how it's going to last. And I remember going through this and just saying, if somebody could tell me I could handle it, if somebody could tell me, okay, you're going to feel like this for 3 years and then it's going to be over. You're going to feel like this for 3 days, 3 weeks, whatever it was. I didn't care how long it was. I just wanted to know it was going to end. And without that assurance that it was going to end, eventually you lose strength. You go back into what you know, like an addiction. You go back to something you know will make it go away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a great explanation. A lot of folks know that I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been sober for many years, but that resonates perfectly, because something that seemed like a friend and a helpful tool, you know, something that helps you relax socially, something that people bond around, something that gets you out there, becomes your enemy. And then how do you make that transition? How do you find new coping tools? Elisabeth, do you have anything you'd like to add?
After hearing Beth talk, I was thinking about how I used to, when I was younger, starve myself, and like getting through that period of like your stomach wants to eat, but you're not letting it. And then finally that feeling like going away, like I would feel like I accomplished something, even though it wasn't a good thing to accomplish. And that's what kept me doing it, because I would feel good about it, not eating and feeling like that I was doing something good for my body, when in reality I wasn't. So like describing that as an addiction is probably like the best explanation for what I was doing to myself. It was like addicted to thinking I was feeling better, even though I wasn't.
Yeah, I could see that leading to a feeling of mastery.
Mm-hmm.
An ultimately destructive one, but I definitely get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next question is, Elisabeth, what are some recovery tools that have helped you the most so far?
The number one thing that I've done that's been very helpful is having an accountability partner, specifically with one of my oldest friends. I will tell her or make her remind me to tell her what I've eaten that day. And even if I haven't eaten 3 full meals, she will like tell me how proud of me she is for even like getting up to go to the kitchen and get food. Because at one point that was really difficult for me. And then talking with other people, especially like Sabria and sometimes with my brother, just discussing like how I feel when I don't want to eat, or telling them I haven't eaten today and I don't want to eat, I don't know what to do. And then getting, I guess, encouragement from them to get up and eat. And even if it's just like like a cracker and some water. Like as long as I'm like trying to put food in my body, they like their encouragement helps me, as well as having like another like a network, like having group therapy where I talk about it there amongst other people that can relate to my situation.
Absolutely. One of our cardinal rules in NAMI support groups is we gain strength by sharing experiences, and it sounds like that's coming true for you, and I'm so glad. Beth, do you have a follow-up?
I would just say that I've been through a lot of different types of therapy, meaning like cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, and I've learned a lot of tools, made a lot of toolboxes, but I think for me the thing that really has been the most helpful tool is it's sort of based on the ACT model, the acceptance and commitment therapy, has a lot to do with your values and your beliefs. So when I am getting into a behavior or I have a certain emotion or a feeling or a thought, I can ask myself, which I'm getting a lot better at doing, because before it just used to be routine, like I feel this way, that must be true, so I'm going to act this way to make it go away. And now I'm more able to say, okay, wait a second, is that really what I believe? Or is that a message that has somehow gotten into my way of thinking throughout the years? Not blaming anyone, but if, you know, where you grow up or who you surround yourself with, is that their message that I've taken on as mine, or is that theirs? So separating me out from them has been a huge help for me to open my eyes and say, oh my gosh, that's not me at all. Like, I don't believe that. I believe this. But, and it sounds crazy, but it's true. So that's been a big help.
That makes perfect sense to me. That's one thing that my own therapist has said is, it's kind of a question, is that, do you feel like that's really coming from your gut, or is that coming from what you think another person's expectations might be?
Yes.
So yeah, thank you for that. And you both got accolades in the chat box from Diane Chrysanda, one of our affiliate leaders. Thanks for sharing valuable information, and thanks for sharing your story, so empowering. So keep an eye on the chat box. A lot of nice stuff is going to be said there. All right. So Beth, one thing that struck me as I prepared for tonight is that mental illnesses tend to be isolating no matter what. And with eating disorders, food is so much a part of social gatherings and social connection. It seems like that would make overcoming the isolation especially hard, or maybe make recovery a little harder. Tell me about that.
That is a huge, huge issue for people with eating disorders, the isolation. I feel like I'm very lucky or blessed that my eating disorder did not start until I was 18. So I had already gone through high school and I had made friends. When it grips a person when they're very young, they don't even get the opportunity to make those friendships. So I already had that built in, and I'm very lucky because my friends and family are everything to me, and they are the very thing that saved me, and I would not be here without them. So I'm lucky for that. But even in that, it was still very isolating, meaning that, as everyone knows, everywhere you go, there's food and there's judgment. And once people know, for me, because I've had my eating disorder for so long, that most everyone that I'm around knows my history and knows where I've been. So you always feel sort of watched extra carefully. If you say no, you don't want anything, then there's all these assumptions that, you know, you're going downhill. It's really hard to balance that. And that does make me and a lot of other people, I think, just avoid those situations altogether. Like, I don't feel like being the weird one that's not going to eat. Like, I know I'm not going to do it. Or if I'm going to try and have something at this wedding or this event, well, then it screws up the rest of my day and I get all off schedule. Like, well, I don't exactly know what I'll be eating tonight, so I better not eat anything else. And it's just a big headache. So you just say, it's easier not to do it. I'm not going to go. And the isolating thing too, for me, it was really hard, and it still is hard because I'm still not working full time. And when I lost during my 20s, when I wasn't working yet, and then I had that little span where I graduated and was working and things were good. And then to go back into this mode of not working, it's just very lonesome and very hard to have somebody to talk to about these things. Like, I think that's why support groups in eating disorders are so important. And like I said, I am lucky that I met a lot of women and men in treatment that can relate, because in the very beginning, that was probably the hardest thing. You feel like so strange and so weird. And it wasn't that I didn't know what I was doing. I knew, and that almost made it worse. Like, why am I doing these things that don't make any sense? And sadly and fortunately, it's taken me 25 years to sort of figure out how this happened, because it wasn't, I wake up one day and I say, yeah, I'm not going to eat anymore. Like, it was not like that at all. It took me a minute to think, why am I doing this? I have no idea why I'm doing this. And that's so baffling to me. I think that's what made me the most angry all the time. I did not understand what was going on inside my own body. And I did not like that feeling.
Yeah, a lot of that resonates with me. Whatever your problem is, having people be aware of it, and then having that self-consciousness and that scrutiny. With me, it's like, am I projecting this, or is it actually there? That's tough.
Yeah.
Elisabeth, any thoughts?
When Beth said that I don't want to be the weird one that doesn't eat, that resonated with me, because I can think of times where, like, I planned my day where I wasn't going to eat until I went to hang out with a friend, so that I would actually eat in front of them, but I hadn't eaten the rest of the day, but they didn't know that. Or I'd cancel because someone asked me to hang out and there's going to be food there, and I had eaten my one time for that day, and I didn't want to be like, oh, I don't want to eat anything. So I didn't want to make it weird in front of them. And yeah, a lot of what you said resonated with me, because I can think of like how many social situations I've avoided because there was going to be food there, especially like Thanksgivings with my family. And it's either you eat too much or you don't eat anything at all. There's like no in between. You get up to go get seconds, you're judged. If you aren't eating everything on your plate, you're judged. So it's very difficult being around my family, especially when mental illnesses are not discussed in a positive way, to want to eat. I haven't been to a Thanksgiving in probably like 4 years because of that. And now, like, talking about it, I'm realizing I have an eating disorder that I wasn't recognizing. And that's why I was avoiding family gatherings like that, because the things they would say to me was so hurtful. And especially now during quarantine, especially the beginning in March, I was isolating myself so much because of how bad my health was getting and how much I didn't enjoy eating anymore. And I couldn't even watch my favorite TV shows on Food Network because I was just, being surrounded by food was making me unhappy. And it was very difficult and isolating time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just had one other thing to say, sorry. But the other part of that isolation stuff, at least for me, was also the physical aspect of it. I was so exhausted and so depleted and so sick and just felt awful all the time that even if I wanted to, even if I knew I could go somewhere and I wouldn't be, no one would question whether or not I'm eating, I just couldn't do it. I mean, walking up the steps, closing the car door, everything took enormous amounts of energy. And for me, a part of my disorder too was not sleeping very well. So I barely slept. So that was on it too. But it takes a physical toll on your body. So it's not only the emotional thing or only the food thing. It's also your body just is tired.
Mm-hmm.
And like Elisabeth said, missing out on those events, now hopefully I won't get emotional talking about it, but it's very sad. Like, I've missed a lot of things. And now that I'm older and I look back, and I've said many times, like, I feel sort of like this year I've woken up from this deep deep sleep, and everyone's life has moved on, and people are married and have babies and have kids, and I am exactly where I was. And I've missed all those moments. I've missed, my nieces and nephews growing up. I've missed, I've said no to being in my best friend's wedding. I've missed a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you for your candor. Please feel free to jump in anytime. That's why we're here tonight, is to learn from your story and your insight. And I, as someone who's facilitated NAMI connection recovery groups for a number of years, I hear that from many people, that I just, that feeling of I've been estranged, or I've been on the outside of different social gatherings for different reasons. So that is a common thing. But again, that food relationship, I understand that makes it more complicated and rougher. It's interesting. One thing that came to mind just real quick is a gentleman in one of my support groups in Columbus became vegan, and he had social anxiety and some other things, but really just having a diet that nobody else was adhering to made it very hard for him to socialize. And he cut way back on his interaction with other people simply because of a health choice that he made. So a lot of connections there with food and social support. And you've got another comment about how you're both so courageous and inspiring and sharing your experiences. And someone is very grateful to be receiving you this evening. So, all right, next question. Elisabeth, what would you say to someone who's just starting out on their recovery journey?
Well, I would say that every journey is different, and there will be bumps in the road at times, and it's going to be tough, but it's possible to hang in there. And always make sure you remember that mistakes will be made, and it's expected, and no journey is perfect. So don't give up, and others have made it, so it is possible, and you are not alone. So reach out, build a support system. There are other people going through the same thing that can help you and give you tools that has helped them get through their journey. And always find someone to talk to as you embark on your journey, because that has also helped me a lot, having friends to talk about these types of issues I've been going through. Even if they don't specifically have the same struggles as me, having someone that is compassionate and can empathize with you is the best thing that you can have.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Beth?
Yeah, I agree with everything Elisabeth said, especially having those safe people to talk to and share your quote unquote secrets with, and be able to, you can't solve something if you're not being honest about it. So finding those people that you can be honest with and who won't judge you for it is so hugely important. I think the other aspect would be getting a treatment team that is eating disorder informed, that knows about eating disorders. I went to several therapists before I found the one that I eventually have been seeing for 25 years. Well, a little less than 25 years. But if they don't, and same with physicians, when I was just starting out, I couldn't find a physician that had any clue how to treat an eating disorder. And I didn't really know what was going on. I was new to all this. I didn't know what was happening. I ended up, even though I was 18, I ended up having to see a pediatrician for the next, I believe it was maybe 3 or 4 years at the very beginning, because those were the only ones that knew about eating disorders. There was nothing for adults. There was no doctors. So pediatricians had been used to dealing with younger girls or teens. So I did see a pediatrician as an adult for quite a while. And it made a world of difference to see people and talk to people that understand on that level. I remember when I first saw my therapist, who I'm still with, she was saying things that were in my head that no one had ever said. And I just remember sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, how do you know that? How do you know my secret? And immediately I knew I was safe. Like, this woman knows what's going on in my head, at least a little bit. And before that, it was just like, oh, you don't like food? Oh, you think you're fat? oh, blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, none of that really, but that's how eating disorders were treated. You put them on a meal plan and you get them back up to weight and you're all good to go. And that wasn't it for me. So.
Wow, yeah, that sounds like a very superficial response. So I'm glad you found someone really helpful.
Me too.
Yeah. Okay. This one is for both of you. Of course, we're living in difficult times. We've got COVID-19, racial trauma, political and social unrest. What helps you cope today? And whoever would like to go first, please do so.
I'll just say that I was terrified when the outbreak of COVID happened, when the quarantine happened, and it was very hard for me because I wasn't scared of the virus. I wasn't scared of getting sick. I was scared of the quarantine. I knew that if I couldn't keep living, I had just started to live like a couple months before that. And I thought, oh my gosh, like this is my worst nightmare. I finally feel like getting out. And for me, when I start on something, I have a momentum and I can keep going. I'm like, if I stop, I'm afraid I'll stop forever. I'm afraid that I'll go right back into where I was. And it was terrifying for me. I'm getting chills as I talk about it and it was hard for people to understand that, but I was so brand new in this whole recovery thing. And I was just getting like social again. And it almost felt like just a cruel joke. Like, are you serious? Like now, after 25 years, when I say I would like to get together with a friend, you're telling me I can't? Like, I can't get together. I can't do these things. And so that was scared. So I think keeping up those, kind of the stuff that everyone has talked about during COVID, keeping up those connections. And again, I'm very lucky that I have several very, very good friends, and we had like standing Zoom call dates and we had standing phone call dates. And I mean, it sounded pretty nerdy, like, okay, we had a scheduled phone call from like 7 to 9 on Thursday. But if I didn't schedule it, it wouldn't happen. And I needed to know, I needed to connect. Connection, I can't say it enough, has been everything for me. So that's that.
Structure is good. That doesn't sound nerdy to me.
I can resonate with a lot of what you said, Beth, because spring semester, like I started being more social and being more vulnerable with people and sharing myself more. So I was gaining more friendships, and then spring break comes and then I don't go back to school. And I was afraid that I was gonna not have any more friends because it would be hard to get people to want to talk virtually through Zoom and everything. But I did have those close friends that would talk with me. So that helped a lot. As well as I kept doing group therapy, even though it was virtual. And we had that every single week. And I did it into the summer as well. So that helped having that connection with people, knowing that was happening every week for like 2 hours. And I also picked up playing guitar again, and I tried learning ukulele. So getting to do something that wasn't just sitting in my room and like actually learning something, that also helped me cope with everything that was going on.
I definitely want to hear you play ukulele someday. That's great. That's wonderful. I'm so glad that you both had similar uplifting experiences, that you had tools and you're managing quite well. So wonderful. So is there a particular book or movie or song that has inspired you?
I'm a big music person. I can't sing and I can't play a darn thing, but I love music, and it's always been really close to my heart. So songs, lyrics, music, it all means so much to me. So I won't even be able to pin it down to one thing. I guess let's say during the quarantine, this also helped with, coping mechanisms too, but it was, there's a band called Blue October, and the lead singer, Justin Furstenfeld, is a recovering addict, and nothing to do with eating disorders, but I felt so connected. And every week he did a every Tuesday, he did kind of like a step study online with anyone who wanted to do it. And it was just talking, and he'd play some music. So you'd get like the music. And I looked forward to that Tuesday all the time. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can be there. And it lifted me up and made me feel less alone, even though, like I said, none of those people, well, I guess I don't know for sure. It's not like we all talked to each other, but it was mostly surrounding addiction. But just knowing that that was there, and then hearing the music and hearing the lyrics, a song just means everything to me. Even in a couple of the treatment centers we were at, like we would make playlists for each other of just like recovery songs and empowerment songs, and like we'd play them a lot. Just, I mean, it makes, for me at least, it makes a big difference to be surrounded by that stuff.
Neat. Elisabeth?
Me, there's this one artist, his name is Chaz Cardigan. I got to see him last year perform, and it's not just his music that just uplifts me. It's he would do Instagram lives at least once a week, and I've spoken to him like twice because he let me be like a guest on his live, and we talked about mental health because he also struggles, and he was open and honest with it. So I was open with him, and he asked me about like how COVID was going with school and everything. So just having someone that doesn't even know me, that I saw once and somehow remembered me from a concert, was just very nice. And then a book that my therapist suggested to me is called My Body's Not an Apology, and it's by Sonia Renee Taylor. I haven't finished it all the way yet, but it helps me a lot because I do have issues with my body image, and that also stems with me and my eating. So reading about another Black woman that struggles with it, since I don't have any family members that talk about it, has helped a lot.
The only other thing that I would want to add to that would be, please don't get your eating disorder education knowledge from movies. Like Elisabeth had said earlier, I mean, I have never seen one movie that has been even in a little tiny bit helpful. They portray it in a way that sort of, for lack of a better term, like sexy to the community. That the emaciated, bony, skinny white girl, teenager usually, a lot of times they portray it as a wealthy person. Like it's very much marketing to get people to watch movies, and that it's not, I don't feel like it's really education at all. So I guess my thing would just be, please don't assume that if you know someone with an eating disorder that this is what their life is like. It's like a Lifetime movie that you saw, or something like that. Like really, and Elisabeth said this earlier, like get to know that person. Everyone goes through a different journey. And not that some of those things in those movies aren't real or true, or we go through those things, but that's not all of it. You're getting one little piece of it, and that's not all of it. So just be open. Just be open.
Mm-hmm. So Elisabeth, I see you nodding your head. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, with the portrayal of movies, if there had been, I guess, a documentary would be a better way to display. I would have been able to see within myself that I had an eating disorder, but I was seeing movies with skinny white girls. So I thought that's what someone with an eating disorder looks like, because I never did any research, wasn't talked about in the family. So like, I didn't know that it could vary from person to person, like how it looks. Mm-hmm. And I even remember there was one show that I saw, and it was a girl that they labeled as overweight, and she was throwing up, and they're like, you don't have an eating disorder, you're too fat to have an eating disorder. So I had that in my head, as well as seeing what I thought was the right eating disorder, like what a person's supposed to look like, and that was wrong. There needs to be better education tools, especially for younger people, so they can at least be exposed to the variety of what a mental illness can look like.
Excellent statement, that last statement. People need to understand what the mental illness can look like, because it's not just one demographic. Well said. Before we shift into our video of the week and our Q&A with the virtual studio audience, would either of you like to add anything, a closing argument?
I don't think so. There's probably a lot that I could say, but nothing is coming into my head at the moment. So I guess just ask, like I said just a minute ago, ask questions, be open. I don't have any problem, and I never had too much of a problem talking about it when people ask me, but it always made me feel not judged, and very much like if somebody could ask me a question like, why are you doing this, instead of assuming, because people make a lot of assumptions a lot. So I really valued the people that took a second to ask me a question about it and allowed me to respond in the way I wanted to, instead of assuming all of the myths and misconceptions that are out there. So, and I also guess I just want to say, I don't know who's all listening to this, but if there is anyone who knows somebody that's struggling, or if you're struggling yourself, like the thing that gives me the most hope right now is my own story. And that sounds kind of weird, but I really, really did not think I was going to make it. And I was ready to go. I mean, the doctors were going to put me on hospice. It didn't, I was not going to make it. And and this is just in these past few years, like I really did not think I was. And I consider it nothing short of a miracle. I mean, that I am in recovery. So in my head, and this is God's honest truth, like if I got out of this, or if I'm getting out of this, I won't say I'm already out of this, after 25 years. I mean, this was not, oh shoot, I lost a year, or I missed this. I missed my 20s. I missed my 30s. I missed the opportunity to have children. I've missed a lot. And if I can still bring my life back together at 43, then anyone can do it. Like anyone can do it. And those people that know me, I don't think that they would have argued that either. They would have thought that I was done, that this was the thing that was going to take me. And I think a lot of people lost hope that I would ever get better. And like I said, I certainly lost all hopes of that whatsoever. So don't give up. Please don't give up. Please, please, please talk to somebody, even if you think it's not helping, Like I said, I've done all these things. I used to argue. I've been to every treatment center. I've been to this therapist. I talked to this person. I tried hypnosis. I tried everything. And it was just, there's no hope for me. There is. And it's easy for me to say, and you just have to kind of grit your teeth and keep going and just hope. Even if after 10 years, you don't see a change, keep going. So that's it.
Wow. Well, personally, I am so grateful for that miracle, Beth, and to both of our panelists. You're so articulate and inspiring. Elisabeth, did you have any final words before we switch gears here?
I want to say to Beth, thank you for sharing. Like everything you just said resonated with me. Like I don't even know the words to say to you right now. Like I'm just like, you just filled me with joy, like just listening to you speak. And I wanted to emphasize, like, don't give up and to ask questions. Because if I hadn't been as vulnerable with the people in my life, I wouldn't be in therapy right now. I wouldn't have been doing group therapy. And because I was willing to be open about the things I was struggling with, I was able to get help. Even though I'm still struggling, I still am talking to people about it. I'm being open. I'm not hiding anything. So that's also important, to be able to be vulnerable with somebody so that you can have someone to communicate with and you're not just listening to your own thoughts in your head.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of key words are coming up that are goals for myself, being transparent, being curious, having grace and compassion for ourselves. So pulling a lot out of this conversation. And now we're going to wrap up the interview portion of our show before we move to our video of the week. Big shout out to all the people working behind the scenes, our executive director, Gary Kreitz, who is once again on the chat box and always here to support us on Thursdays with NAMI, and our fabulous tech intern, Eddie Simmons, for always being there with tech support. And of course, thanks to our guests for being here. Now, I've got a video about 5 signs your child may have Anorexia. It ties in nicely with Elisabeth's earlier comment about paying attention to the signs for young folks.
Did you know that an average of 35% of adolescent girls engage in crash dieting, fasting, self-induced vomiting, or take diet pills or laxatives? Even more frightening is the fact that 42% of first through third grade girls have an outspoken desire of being thinner. Hello, I'm Dr. Elba Iglesias. I'm the medical director of adolescent medicine at Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital. The first thing every parent must know about eating disorders is that this is an issue that requires medical attention, and it not only affects girls, but boys too. How can a parent know if this is happening within their household? Here are 5 signs your child may have an eating disorder. If your child starts showing concerns for weight, food, labels, or dieting, this is an early sign that when treated in time and with professional help can avoid significant damage and long-term consequences. It's common to see an increase in anxiety in a child or adolescent who's developing an eating disorder. Anxiety often follows with weight loss and can be both a precursor to or a byproduct of anorexia. Avoidance of mealtime or plans involving food, change in behaviors around mealtime, or withdrawal from friends and social activities are also key indicators that an eating disorder might be in process. More clear signs would be abuse of laxatives, diuretics, diet pills, or self-induced vomiting. Also, a change in their dressing habits, such as oversized clothing to cover the body or revealing clothes to flaunt weight loss. Unusual food behaviors, such as cutting food into tiny pieces, using large quantities of condiments, suddenly insisting on using particular spoons, forks, cups, or plates, are traits of teenagers who suffer from anorexia. The most important thing is to remember to avoid making accusations, be supportive, and seek immediate help from a professional if an eating disorder is suspected. Early intervention is key. This is it for today. I'm Dr. Elba Iglesias. See you soon on another Jody's Quick Tips. It's a medicine at Joe DiMaggio.
Okay, and now we're back. I really liked that video. I thought it was a nice summary. Okay, so now we're back to take your questions, virtual studio audience members. We look forward to hearing from you, and we've got a few lined up in the queue right now. If you are new to Zoom, you may be wondering, how do I ask a question? You want to click on the Q&A icon at the bottom center of your monitor, and you'll magically get a window to type your question in. And we will answer as many questions as we can by 8:30 or until we run out of questions. All right, here we go. What are the best practices for educating myself, my circles of influence at work, church, in families, and beyond? The workplace is of great interest to me, in particular since I serve as an employee assistance professional. So best practices for educating myself and others. Any thoughts on that, panelists? Keep attending Thursdays with NAMI.
I guess my own, I probably repeating myself here, but would be talk to people who have been through it. Don't rely on the textbooks, the TV, the movie. Talk to people who have been through it and just listen with an open mind. Listen to what they have to say with an open mind and try and let go of those stereotypes. But I think, honestly, that's the best way to get information, is talking to somebody that is either going through it or who has been through it. That would be my suggestion. I mean, the books and they're all good for some, you know, like here's a list of, you know, criteria that someone will meet for anorexia. Like that's all great, but to really understand it and to get to the heart of it, I think you need to talk to somebody who's actually been there.
Yeah, I agree with what Beth just said, especially letting go of the stereotypes, because that's what was in my head and why I was convinced I didn't have an eating disorder, because of the stereotypes that were presented to me through the media. So, and especially talking to someone that has who's going through or has gone through it, that is the best source of information, because books and any like educational things can be very surface level, and everyone's journey is different as well.
Well, I certainly find it most inspiring to talk with real people who are going through a recovery or who have that lived experience. That always lifts me up and tells me the most. Okay. What would you suggest as a way to help others who are living with an eating disorder?
I'm going to say, sound like a broken record, listening and being patient and loving without an agenda. Loving somebody right where they are and accepting them right where they are. And that doesn't mean you're not helping them get better. The biggest thing that my few close friends had done for me and family was that they just waited. And I say that now to them a lot. I said, thank you for waiting for me. Thank you for waiting for me and just letting me get here when I needed to. There was no expectation of you need to do this and this and this, or they didn't have their own agenda. If you're really trying, if you go to this treatment center and if you stay there for this long of a time, then we will support you. But I guess the thing that bothered me a lot was some judgment of, if you're not recovering the way somebody thinks you should recover. Everyone recovers very differently. So I guess I just can't say that enough, of just listening and just letting someone be. There's no point in trying to get them to be somewhere they're not. Even as a friend, like, let the medical professionals deal with that part. Let them deal with that part. You just be there to listen. And, the people that I stuck with were the people that would, when I couldn't do anything, would just come watch a movie with me. For years, all I could do was go get tea or go watch a movie. And that's all we did. Like, I wasn't fun anymore. We didn't go out. We didn't do anything. Like I said, I didn't come to their weddings, their baby showers, all of that stuff. But the people that would take an evening and come sit with me without talking about that or tell me about their own life and not ask, like I said, asking questions is very important. So I'm not against that, but also talking about other things with them, like hearing about their life or just talking about normal things. I know for people that suffer for a long time, again, speaking about myself, your world sort of becomes this eating disorder world. And you really only see people that have eating disorders. You're talking to people that have eating disorders. You're talking to doctors that have eating. Your whole world, not to mention your mind, your head is full of the eating disorder all the time, nonstop. So having people to talk about something else with is a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Elisabeth?
A lot of what Beth said is what I would also say. Just having someone be supportive is the biggest thing for me, and not feeling like I had to be forced to eat when I was around someone else that knew that I was struggling with eating also helped. And because with my family, I also struggled with depression, and medicine wasn't forced, but it was like heavily encouraged. And it made me not want to take medicine because I was like, you want me to take it so I'm normal. So with my eating, that's how I felt as well. Is like, if you're gonna try and force me to eat, you want me to be normal, like look normal when I'm out with you, like that's not helpful for me. Just having someone that understands you and is there to talk to you. And I like what you said, Beth, about talking about other stuff that doesn't have to do with food or anything. Because I had a hard time talking about food, talking about any like shows with food, talking about chefs, talking about restaurants you want to go to. I had a hard time talking about any of that. And so being able to like escape from that part of myself was nice, having a friend that would be there for me to talk about anything else but what I was struggling with. Because sometimes just having to be with myself alone, especially in the start of March with the quarantine and everything, I was constantly hearing stuff in my head, myself talking to myself about, I guess, putting myself down, especially in concerns with food. Like, you don't need to go downstairs and eat. Like, you're already fat. I was constantly saying things like that to myself, and it was a struggle. So having like friends, even if it was through Zoom, to talk about anything else was very helpful.
Mm.
Kind of piggybacking on what you just said, Elisabeth, that issue of being able to have those safe people to help you challenge the things that are going on in your head, even though it wasn't that I like lost sanity and I knew, like, I didn't realize what I was doing, like I said earlier, or that I didn't know the thoughts that I was having were probably wrong, but yet I still felt really compelled to do this thing. You know, I had all these people telling me that, you know, this was not a good thing, and I was still doing it. So I did have a few people where I really would use them to challenge my own thoughts. Like, okay guys, my head's telling me this. Like, is that true? And I just needed to say it, and I needed to hear someone say, yeah, that's not true. That's garbage. That's your eating disorder talking. That is not true. So having those people to bounce things off of, who aren't going to get annoyed, because there are those people too. Like, I don't know, like, I feel like if I eat this, blah, 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 blah. Oh my gosh, Beth, are you serious? Like, oh my God, you are thin enough, blah, 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 blah. And they would get very annoyed. And so then that, again, would lead to the isolation. Well, I'm not liked, I'm not understood, nobody gets me, I'm going to retreat back here. So having those people to that are willing to listen to the things that are going on in your head and just provide reassurance. And reassurance can be annoying, but I've really never met an eating disordered person that didn't need a lot of reassurance over and over and over again. And I thank my friends and family so much for repeating healthy messages to me over and over and over and over. And they weren't seeing results. And I guess that's what I mean by love without agenda. They kept at it over and over and over, and they didn't see anything getting better. Yeah, I don't think this is helping anything. And it did. It took forever. It took way longer than I wanted it to, but it did.
Mm. Well, that kind of gave me goosebumps. That's really powerful feedback and information. One of my favorite recovery phrases is radical acceptance. I believe it comes out of dialectical behavioral therapy. And that's what comes to mind, that radical acceptance, like wherever you are, that's where you're at, and that's okay. Yeah. I definitely need that. Thank you. Okay, what else have we got in the queue here? When did you realize you had an eating disorder? What do you feel led to the eating disorder?
For me, it was around March, when my blood sugar was like in the 600s, and I was feeling weak, couldn't really walk anywhere. Actually, it was a little bit before that, because my birthday was May 29th. I went to Asheville, tried hiking, and I thought I was out of shape, but it was actually the fact that I wasn't eating how I was supposed to, and I wasn't taking care of my diabetes. But what led to it was just the family environment I was in when I was younger. And like, I remember one time my mom said to me, it was a picture of me with somebody, and you could see like the outline of my stomach and like my belly button. And she was like, pointed that out and said something. And I remember a couple months later, I had taken another picture with somebody, and I showed my mom, and I was like, look, you can't see my stomach anymore. And at the time, I didn't realize that was like not a good thing to be comparing myself in photos. And it took until just recently to realize that I've been struggling with eating disorder. But it's just, my whole childhood was just like comments about food, either not eating enough or eating too much. And it's just, Black community doesn't talk about mental health. So I have an aunt that struggles with mental health, but I didn't know until high school because it wasn't talked about. It was just that she's in the hospital right now. Did not know what that meant. It was more of just like, pray for her, she's in the hospital. No one gave any specifics. And I didn't find out till high school, when I was like talking to her more one-on-one, that she was struggling with mental health. And then I realized I was too. So it's a lot of issues within the Black community that needs to be addressed. And that's why I like writing my blog, because I don't see a lot of that coming from like people that look like me being willing to talk about it. And I'm glad that I'm now comfortable talking about it, because I didn't used to be, because of being with so much family and not feeling comfortable with them. But now I'm glad that I've been able to have platforms where I can speak about what I've gone through and like reflect on my earlier years and see like this was an issue and I need to share it with other people so they can maybe see something for themselves that maybe they were struggling with when they're younger, or see it in somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Well, we need more clear young voices, especially in the Black community. So I'm really glad you're here, and you do have a strong voice.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm here too.
I really think it's awesome that you're doing this, Elisabeth, because early on and with the challenges that you faced, like you said, the stereotypes and all of that, and being in the Black community, all of that, like I give you so much credit for getting on here and speaking about it, and, you know, trying to help instead of, you know, staying in a shameful, you know, stay in hiding. You're out there talking about it, and I guarantee you're going to make it easier for at least one person to talk about it, or to own it, or to take the next step.
Thank
So,
you.
go you.
So Beth, did you want to speak to your experience? When did you realize, and what do you feel led to it?
Well, a lot. So that's like a humongous question, but I'll try to be very succinct about it. I first noticed that it started when I went away to college, as I said, when I was 18. And I don't think I really understood at first. I was just kind of cutting back, trying to eat a little healthier. But as I did it, and this is where the addiction thing comes in too, it did give me a sense of euphoria, or a high of like, whoa, I can do this thing. Like I can survive. Like it felt almost, and this, it doesn't, I have to be careful the way I say this, but it felt almost superhuman. Like I was shocking myself, and that felt good. Like, oh, I can do this impossible thing. I can do that. I wonder how else, like, how far I can go. Like how can I go? And every time it would be a little rush, and not really about proving it to anyone else, but proving to myself, like, man, I can do this. Like nothing is going to control me, which is interesting because the eating disorder ends up totally controlling you. But that reassurance, it was kind of reassurance to myself, because I had the negative messages in my head that, you know, you are an out of control monster, your emotions are too big, you're too much, everything is too much. And I was really scared of my own emotions. So to be able to do something very tangible that was like, I am not out of control. Like I totally can do this. I can do this really hard thing. And it just, so that's kind of how it started. When I went home for Christmas break that year, I had gone away to college. And when I went home for Christmas break, my friends noticed that I had lost a lot of weight, and they went without me knowing and talked to my parents. And my parents and I weren't close at that time, and they didn't really know what to do. So nothing was really done, but that's kind of how it all got brought up. And the first time that I think I really knew I had an issue was, we're talking September, I went to college. November was my sister's birthday, and she lived down in Columbus with me. And I was going to go out with her, and we were going to go out to pizza. And I remember where we went. I remember everything about it. And I remember having a very small piece of pizza and being sick all night. And not purposely, like just sick. My stomach was killing me. I mean, this is probably way too much information, but like digestion was like not good. Like I was in the bathroom in this dorm, this not public bathroom, but this dorm bathroom all night. And I remember thinking, my body doesn't know what to do with food anymore. Like it really doesn't know what to do. And that, it scared me. It didn't scare me enough into changing my behaviors, but it did scare me. And I knew at that point The other point that I knew something was wrong was at the beginning too. It might have been that November as well. I had gone with my sister. She was babysitting 2 little boys, and we were playing basketball out in the backyard. And I went to run to get the ball, and I couldn't run. I could not run. And that was like the weirdest feeling ever, because my muscle was deteriorating. Everything was falling apart. So I guess those 2 things really were like, oh, I think something is actually wrong here. Like, I think something is actually wrong.
Mm. There's a lot of courage in your candor. Thanks to both of you so much. All right, next question. What are your thoughts about how to best be there for people who are challenged by an eating disorder, and how to encourage getting help? You've kind of covered this already, but if you'd like to add something.
I guess I'm trying to think of something a little bit different that we haven't said before. Offering, things that you hear about, offering in such a way of like, hey, I heard about this thing. Do you think that would be something that would help you? Instead of, hey, I heard this is what you're supposed to do. And you should, people that pretended, even in a very kind way, and for kind purposes, because they cared about me, because they loved me. They were not doing it to be nasty or to be know-it-all-y. But the people that said they had an answer, I didn't trust them to throw a stone. Like, nobody has the answer. So don't explain my own experience to me. Like, let me choose. Hey, this worked for so-and-so. Like, if I had a friend, hey, I tried this and this really helped me. Maybe you can grab one thing from that and that'll help you. And that's what I really am doing now. For however many years, I was constantly looking for that person or that book or that something. Where's my step-by-step guide? Like, you recovered? Well, how'd you do it? Tell me exactly how did you do it so I can follow those steps and I'll do it. And there isn't one. And I hate to say that, because I was like, I'm gonna help everyone. I'm gonna tell everyone exactly how to do it. You can't. But I'll tell you, it's every single one of those little things. In 25 years, they all added up. They're still adding up. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So suggest things. Don't pressure. If that's not them, trust that they know themselves too. And if they're not capable of that right now, that's not where they're at. And even if you don't see the progress that you want to be seeing, I know a lot of my friends had a very, I lost a lot of friends, and I had those few friends that did, stand by me, even though they weren't having fun, even though they didn't think that anything was going to change, just being there and still believing, or at least saying they did, even if they didn't believe anymore. So.
It's interesting. It sounds like you can pull wisdom from a lot of different places, and each person has to make their own tapestry.
Yes.
So
that's beautiful. Yes, that's exactly it.
Elisabeth, you were nodding your head for some of that.
Yeah, everything that Beth said, I agree with. And another thing that's helped me is with my friend, she would send me messages or like quotes she would see that to encourage me, or like videos of encouragement, or we would just like, not even like, we don't talk every day, but some days she would just say, I love you, just randomly, which is very supportive. And a phrase that I like to say to her, and she would say to me, is like, your feelings are valid. And that always helped me a lot. That little thing just takes like 2 seconds of like your day to send someone that message, and it can mean so much to them.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
The only other really quick thing I wanted to add to that is I agree with everything you said, Elisabeth. The thing about, oh shoot, it left my head for a minute. Oh, I know what it was. It was about negativity and positivity and all of that. And this is really hard to do with somebody that you love and care about. because you want to think positive. You want to counter everything they say with the positive affirmation or something, but allow that person, I don't, maybe people will disagree with me, but for me, allowing me to be miserable when I was miserable and letting me feel crappy and say I felt crappy, those were the people that I needed to be around. Again, accepting me where I was. It wasn't, you never have anything positive to say. Look at the bright side. All that look at the bright side stuff, like, no. I don't mean to sound mean or harsh or anything, but looking on the bright side and seeing the bigger picture and all of that, it kind of almost invalidates, like Elisabeth was talking about validating, it invalidates the fact that, hey, this really is hard. I think the biggest thing that people could do for me was show empathy, and that, like, oh, wow, that really must suck. That really must be hard. I can't imagine feeling that way. Not like, well, all you got to do is, stand in the mirror in the morning and look at yourself and tell yourself how beautiful you are and blah, blah. Like, no, like that wasn't happening for me. So somebody who could just be in, this sounds bad, be in the negativity with me, be in the misery with me, and just accept it and hear it and see it and know it's real, that was huge.
Yeah. To me, that sounds very authentic. Someone to be present with you, not judging, not changing, but knowing that your feelings are valid. And a lot of the comments you made, look at the bright side, think of the long term. I've heard those in light of living with depression as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And usually from very well-meaning people, very well-meaning people, but it's just, for me, it was not helpful at all.
Mm.
Yeah, I lost friends because they could not deal with my negativity, my being miserable. And obviously those are the friends I did not need, because the friends that I have had before I realized I was struggling with mental illness, and the ones that have been through me with it, and as I'm getting better, those are the friends that I value the most.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Comments from the chat box. Elisabeth, remarkable. Thank you so much for sharing. You have so much courage and bravery. Thank you, Beth, for your courage and bravery. I love that. It's the simple things. So, and I agree with all of that. Our next question is for Beth. Do you have more insights to help others as to what it was that helped you recover or start your recovery when you were in the hospice or medically at rock bottom?
Let's see. I guess I would just say, I feel like a broken record of the keep trying things, keep trying. Honestly, I mean, I'm just going to be very honest here. Like, I had given up, and it was simply because I wasn't dying that I got better. I would have liked to have not been here anymore. I was praying every night when I went to sleep that I would not wake up in the morning, and I would wake up and I would literally say, like, God damn it, I'm still here. Like, what the heck? So being at that point of waiting for years and feeling like that, waiting to just die and it not happening, I think that's what finally made me take that last thing. I had tried everything, but I was willing. My thought was, I will get peace with death. That is what I want. Like, that is the only way I'll find peace. I'm not getting better. Everyone knows I'm not getting better. That's the only thing that I can imagine being at peace. Like, that sounds beautiful to me. Like, I just don't want to be here. And not for whatever reason, I did not die. And, the books said that I should have, my health, how long I've suffered, all of that, I technically should have been not here. And I couldn't, I couldn't successfully take my own life. So I felt like I was trapped on Earth, which is weird, but I did. I felt like I was trapped here. And if I was trapped here and I had to be here and I wasn't getting out, then I guess I would try anything that I could. So that's what, I guess that's the thing when people say, like, how could you even try anything else? Like, that's what eventually did, because I stopped for a while. I stopped trying everything for a while. And then it was like, because I thought my freedom is just around the corner. I'm going to die soon. My freedom's just around the corner. And it didn't happen. So that helped me keep pushing forward. And I know that that's not like super great advice, because you don't want somebody to struggle for so long and get to that point. Yeah, so sometimes I feel bad saying that, because I do have a very long story and it didn't have a quick happy ending. But yeah.
Well, there's a lot of resilience there, and we don't always know what worked or why. We don't always have all the answers. I think your honesty and your authenticity, it's what I liked about you before, and it's what I like about you now.
Thank you.
Elisabeth, did that spark any thoughts for you? Do you want to add on?
Nothing like specific to like eating disorders. I just could resonate with not wanting to be here because of my struggles with depression, which also, I guess, can go with my eating disorder, because I told my therapist at one point that I didn't want to kill myself, but I was waiting for my diabetes to take me out, because I knew, although there's like, it would take a long time, I knew that could lead to death, and I was just tired of being here. And I also would wake up not wanting to have woken up a lot of the time. So I can resonate with what you said, and just the overall struggles with mental illness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thank you too, Elisabeth, for your courage and your candor. I want to acknowledge that we're hitting on some heavy themes here. It could possibly be triggering, and help is available if you want to talk to someone, if you feel some distress. This is what recovery looks like. It's talking about real issues that are heavy, that are painful, and that's how we wade through them. We come together, we share experiences. That's what recovery is about. That's what NAMI is about. All right, we've got one more question in our Q&A box for our awesome panelists. Do you have any tips for helping someone who is hiding an eating disorder and or doing other self-harm by covering those up with loose-fitting clothes?
I used to wear a lot of men's clothes, and that was to hide my body because I was ashamed of looking at and having people look at me. And I know one thing that did help me was having a friend to like go shopping with, which is like such a little thing, but just having someone to be like, this would look good on you, because I can't see it for myself, but my friends can see it for me, help me feel more comfortable in my body. And like having my friend like just surprise me with like little things, like I saw this at a store and I wanted to get it for you. Because I would always gravitate towards the men's section, get the biggest hoodie, get the biggest t-shirts, so that I was literally covered and you could not tell like the shape of my body. So that was just having someone, just like a support system, even if it's not with like shopping, if it's something else, like that is very helpful. And it's just like, I had this one friend that like, she would send me pictures of like clothing thing and that would look good on me. And I would do the same for her. Just like having someone that's not talking about like, oh, you're wearing a lot of men's clothes, maybe you should try and shop in the girls section. Instead, it's just sending you something like, hey, this will look cute on you. It just like kind of like distracted me from the fact that I was shopping in the men's section, that I could look good in other things. Like I didn't need to hide, and no matter like what my body looked like it was my body and that's how it's supposed to look.
Yeah, absolutely. Having a safe space, having some positive reinforcement. Yeah, Beth?
I would say it's really easy to get frustrated and angry with people. I got frustrated and angry with myself, but it's very easy to get frustrated to watch a person in essence killing themselves, to doing something so harmful to their bodies. It's easy to get angry, to make accusations, to scold almost. But as weird as this sounds, we're not being bad little girls and boys. Like we're not being bad. It's not a behavior that we're doing. So to come at us with a punishment, because I definitely had that in the beginning, it was more of a punishment. And even in some of the treatment centers, they would, you don't eat your food, you get punished. Like, no, like what I needed most of all was someone to talk to me, not about food. Yes, food is the issue. Food is what kept me alive. Food is what I needed to do. But I needed somebody to say, like, if I knew somebody was, or I thought somebody was struggling, I would probably talk to them, not anything about food. Be like, wow, like you seem like, you got a lot on your mind, or you seem like something's going on. Like, I just want you to know you can talk to me if you need to talk about anything. In my opinion, leave the food piece out of it and talk to them about their emotions, what they're feeling, and have compassion for what they're going through. They're not doing something to you. They're not doing a mean, bad thing. They are struggling. They are hurting. People don't just get eating disorders. Like there's some serious wounds in there, and a person is in need of not being fixed, of being healed. So healing is very different. So if you can approach it with that kind of compassion, that made a huge difference for me. Once I realized we're already telling ourselves we suck and we're horrible, and oh my gosh, now what have I done? Now I've made this person mad at me. Now I've pissed off my mom because blah, 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 like whatever. So to have, we don't really need more of that, of why don't you just do it? I don't know. Why don't I just do it? Because I guess I can't, and I don't know why, and I don't know what's going on. So coming at with like, hey, I'm here if you want to talk. You seem like something might be going on, just over and over, and not pushing it. Just every time you see them, or every time you talk to them, if it's somebody you talk to regularly, like just, hey, I'm here, right? Like, I'm here, and sharing too, maybe sharing some of your own stuff. It doesn't have to be eating disorder, not at all. Like, just like, hey, I was really depressed today. Like, I had a really crappy day at work. And, sometimes when we tell each other, open up and make ourselves vulnerable, it helps other people be vulnerable as well. So if you're willing to share, maybe they'll be willing to share. But the one thing you can't do, you can try, but I've never seen it help anyone to force it. You can't force someone to get better. You can commit somebody to an eating disorder treatment center. You can feed them. You can pump them full of calories. You're not fixing them. You're not helping them heal. Like, maybe you kept them alive for a moment, which is good and necessary, but that's not where it ends, and that's not what healing, that's not what recovery looks like. Just this past year, this is the last thing I'll say, just this past year, I a lot of people thought like, oh, we can't wait for the day that like we go out to eat with Beth, or like she sits and eats a hamburger with us, and blah, blah, blah. Like it was that kind of mentality, because that in people's minds is you're better. You don't have an eating disorder anymore. You're okay. And the biggest compliment that I received this year was me enjoying something. I was enjoying myself, like truly enjoying something, and I haven't enjoyed anything in a long time. And apparently that was apparent in the way I looked. And my friend said to me, she said, screw the hamburger, this is what recovery looks like. And I was like, yes, like I'm even getting chills as I say it, because I'm like, that's it. Like, I could have ate in front of you 10 years ago and then starved myself for a week, and it wouldn't have meant anything. But this, coming back to life, that is what recovery looks like. So, sorry, I'm like getting a little passionate here.
I love that. Thank you for showing us what recovery looks like. That's beautiful. That truly is both of you. And I like your comments about, we don't need our inner critic reinforced. We need gentleness. We need kindness. We need people to talk to. We're real close to the end of our time. This last question is for Elisabeth. I don't know if I missed it. What is the name of Elisabeth's blog?
It's
Yeah.
called Achieving Mental Excellence. And actually, my first post explains why I titled it that. I can drop the link in the chat to everyone.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
I would love to read it. And it looks like, oh, there it is in the chat already. That is the end of our show. And I knew tonight would be powerful, and I knew I would love the show. But even with those high expectations, you both blew me away. So I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for sharing your courage and your story and making a difference.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Elisabeth, I enjoyed getting to know you. Thank you. It felt like a very easy conversation. So thank you for making it flow nicely and for not, judging and for having two of us. It helped me to hear Elisabeth's stuff, and it helped me open up a little bit more. It just made it all a little bit more comfortable. So this was great.
Everything right back at you. And I just felt connected to you.
Aww.
It was a great conversation.
Well, even after this, if you ever want to talk, I'm here.
All right. Well, this is a beautiful note to end on. Another 90 minutes has absolutely flown by. Shout out again to Gary Kreitz and Eddie Simmons behind the scenes, and our wonderful guests, Beth and Elisabeth. In the coming week, do what you need to do. Go where you need to go to be safe. And thanks to everyone in our virtual studio audience. Have a wonderful week. Next week, we've got folks from Moms Demanding Action Against Gun Violence. We're going to look at the connection between gun violence and suicide. That will be another powerful show. Please join us. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves. All right.